In A Scandal in Bohemia, Sherlock Holmes poses a simple question to Dr. John Watson: how many steps lead up to their Baker Street apartment? Watson is baffled. He has walked those stairs hundreds of times, yet he has absolutely no idea. Holmes points out the flaw. Watson sees, but he does not observe. This is our brain's default operating state. Drawing on the dual process theory pioneered by psychologist Daniel Kahneman, we can call this System Watson. It is our cognitive autopilot, the lazy, fast, and path of least resistance way we navigate daily life. When we rely entirely on this default state, we drift through a false reality. We passively absorb the world without processing it, remaining entirely blind to the details hiding in plain sight. Look at our sensory processing. At any given second, our nervous system is bombarded by roughly 11 million distinct pieces of sensory data. Out of that flood, our conscious mind processes a maximum of 40 individual data points per second. Processing information requires immense caloric energy. To keep us from burning out, the brain tightly restricts the flow, relying on pre-built habits and cognitive shortcuts to fill in the gaps. This creates a phenomenon known as attentional blindness. If you've ever watched a video asking you to count basketball passes and completely missed a person in a gorilla suit walking through the frame, you've experienced this exact biological delete button. By letting the autopilot dictate what makes it through the filter, we surrender our perception. We base our decisions on incomplete data and lose control over the memories and facts that actually make it into our mental storage. The alternative to this biological sleepwalking is what we'll call System Holmes. It is the deliberate, skeptical, and highly demanding analytical override to our mental autopilot. Engaging it requires two distinct fuels: maintaining a constant, active presence in the current moment, forcing your attention to stay anchored to your immediate surroundings rather than wandering. The second fuel is motivation. You must want to interact with the environment and decode it, treating perception as a goal rather than a passive reflex. If you attempt to override your habits without deliberately applying both presence and motivation, the mental strain will simply exhaust you, and your brain will instantly revert to its passive, energy-saving mode. Once you apply those fuels, you can begin the first of 4 practices: selectivity. Because your brain can only process 40 bits of data a second, you must assign it a specific target to filter the surrounding noise. If you walk into a bakery and your goal is to eat healthy, you don't allow your brain to passively process the smell of sugar. You actively instruct your vision to look for burnt edges, excessive grease, or artificial coloring. The second practice is objectivity. Humans have a dangerous tendency to instantly conflate what we physically observe with how that object or person makes us feel, blending facts with assumptions. To break this habit, try describing a situation out loud as if explaining it to a complete stranger who cannot see it. This verbal exercise forces your brain to slow down, separate facts from your emotional interpretations, and ultimately catch its own hidden biases. By selectively choosing your data and objectively naming it, you strip away the comfortable, inaccurate narratives your brain generates by default. The third practice is inclusivity. We over-rely on our vision, but active observation requires deliberately incorporating smell, sound, and touch to build a 3-dimensional model of a situation. Crucially, this includes noticing what isn't there. Just as Holmes solved a case by noting a guard dog that didn't bark at intruders, recognizing an absence of sound, scent, or action provides a vital data point. The final practice is engagement. True active perception requires singular focus. It is biologically incompatible with multitasking, checking your phone, or rehearsing a future conversation. You have to adopt the mindset of a hunter. You hoard your limited attentional resources, locking them entirely onto the specific task at hand. Full sensory inclusivity and singular engagement stand as the ultimate defenses against a modern world designed to constantly fracture our attention. Attempting to run this analytical System Holmes every second of the day is both physically and mentally unsustainable. But the goal is not constant effort. The goal is habituation. Think about learning to drive. At first, you consciously execute every step, checking mirrors, applying brakes. The cognitive load is immense. But as you practice active observation, your brain adapts through neuroplasticity. Neural pathways physically rewire, smoothing connections until those exhausting actions become automatic. Through deliberate repetition, the demanding techniques of the Holmes method overwrite your biological defaults, becoming your new, effortless baseline. Every day we face a choice. We can treat our surroundings with a healthy dose of skepticism, or take the biological path of least resistance. We no longer have to be the person who walks up the same steps hundreds of times without ever knowing how many there are. Overwriting cognitive autopilot restores your agency. It pulls you from a passive haze, shifting your perspective into the sharp, hyper-detailed reality you've been sleepwalking through.